Good morning. So we received several questions. The first one is, does the ventilation rate differ with weather, from cold to hot? Who would like to answer?
Can you hear?
Yes. Yes. Oli?
First question, does the ventilation rate differ with the weather? Basically, the basic requirements are the same for human occupants in the building in cold weather and hot weather. There should be no difference. However, if you think about the cost effectiveness of ventilation, you can actually think that in warm weather you could ventilate more because you don't have to cool or heat the air so much. So that's one point. Now I have to give the floor to somebody else.
Yes. Do you want to add some point, Bjarne?
Well, I just want to say that people feel when air is colder, the air they inhale is colder, they feel it more fresh, and they feel the air quality is better. So there is some, but it has nothing to do with the outside weather. It is when the temperature inside, it's better to keep a lower air temperature because then you feel the air more fresh.
Okay, thank you. The second question is, while making regulation, why health and indoor air climate quality is not considered till today?
That's not true. I can answer that.
Yes.
That's not the case because in many countries it has been considered. And as I showed in my presentation, many of the countries have had in the building regulations also already the limit values for the indoor air pollutants.
Thank you. The next question would be how green chemistry is incorporated in the design and regulations. Who would like to answer?
I could respond to that too.
Go ahead, Oli.
There has been quite a long time work already on kind of clean building materials. And in some countries like Germany, Denmark, Finland have already kind of labeling the green, low-emitting building materials. And at the moment, there's some development at EU level to kind of have a common testing method and limit values of the emission of the materials. Okay.
I can just add to that in the standard for ventilation, we have 3 building categories. Not low pollutant, and very low pollutant. And that depends on the type of materials you put in. But as Olli was mentioning also, we really need a common testing method of materials so you easily can see what kind of materials and what emissions you have so you can identify what category of buildings. But it's already incorporated, but we need better certification of materials.
Thank you, Bjarne. And once again, we have the question about, is there major changes from cold climate to hot country? And the person is asking the question is from the United Emirates.
Well, yeah, Bjarne speaking. I can speak
Yes.
to that. Well, of course, there's a major changes in the energy consumption and how you can establish a good indoor environment. What we have seen is that people living in warm countries which have natural ventilation, they seem to adapt to higher temperature. But it's not the case if you're living in hot countries and have air conditioning. Then basically you can use about the same criteria. There has been some studies showing that what people prefer, there doesn't seem to be so much differences. So I think the differences is more in how can you, in an energy efficient way, create a good indoor environment. we see in many humid countries where they have high humidity that they run their air conditioning at a very low temperature because they want to use the air conditioner also for dehumidifying, and that's why they get low temperature indoor. But today you can remove humidity by desiccant method. You can also reheat the air again with the heat you get out from the cooling. So there's many ways that you can get the dehumidification without getting freezing temperatures inside.
Thank you, Björn. And one specific question from Finland: where is the 18 requirement in office building comes from? I think it's for Oli's presentation.
Yeah, that's for the health vent study based on the case room.
Okay. And what is your attitude to room-specific heat recovery ventilation? Who would like to respond?
That's quite difficult to apply.
Well, we are seeing now that there is a trend maybe to use a local ventilation system or local air conditioning system where you don't have a central system, but each room has its own unit with air intake to the outside. If we are talking about this, it's very important that I also have heat recovery. So I think it's a question about if you have what we call local system, individual room system, or if you have central system. In both cases, it's very important that you have heat recovery.
Thank you, Björn. Somebody that added a question, an opinion and a question after. In their opinion, certain European countries with soft winters and fresh nights in summers have a different operation than building in Northern Europe. More ventilation system, more natural ventilation can be used. Should these differences be contemplated in future codes?
Yeah, I think that's what I mentioned, that specifically in those cases, the ventilation requirement stays the same, but the so-called hybrid ventilation system can be more effective in mild climate than in the cold climate. So yes, there should be the difference.
I can add that even if we are not a southern European country, Denmark, we have just revised our standard for ventilation, and which include, earlier was only talking about mechanical, but it's include now natural, mechanical, and hybrid. So natural ventilation is regarded as a system, and I think that's very important. Natural ventilation is not just opening window. That may not help, but you really have to design it for natural ventilation so you're sure that you will get a ventilation in the building. Then it could be an advantage to use more natural ventilation, especially in those countries, because one problem we have seen, but there may be solutions to that, is it may be a little more difficult to get heat recovery on natural ventilation. But we may get new heat recovery units with less pressure drops, so that can also be used for natural ventilation.
Thank you, Björn. And a question about the cost. What is the cost of a healthy building?
I can answer that. I can say it's much cheaper than an unhealthy building. If you have an unhealthy building, it will have big cost for people living in the building. But I think you were talking more about the cost for the building itself. And it doesn't have to be more expensive. You just have to do the right thing.
Thank you.
More clever and careful design, I would say. No extra construction cost.
And the final question, how behavior change is addressed?
Well, I can try. I don't know if there is a behavior change, but as I mentioned, the behavior is very important. And the thing we are working with is how can we change the behavior? How can we help people in not over-ventilating or overheating, and not underheating is also a problem, because if it's too cold, you will have damage on the building. The problem at the moment is people, they do not have a good feedback on what they do. They get the heating bill once a year. Most of the people, they don't know exactly how big the heating bill is. They don't relate it to any actions they have done. For ventilation, people don't really have a meter they can see if they need more or less ventilation. So I think there's much more to do in giving better feedback to people how the indoor environment is and if they're using excess energy.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for both your presentation and answering the questions.